another time. Let me celebrate. Let me be. Open your Bibles. John 10, we're starting at verse 22. It goes like this. It was now winter, and Jesus was in Jerusalem at the time of Hanukkah, the festival of the dedication. He was in the temple walking through the section known as Solomon's Colonnade. So let's set the scene here. This portion that we're reading is a different time frame than what Pastor Tim led us through last week. It's winter time, and Jesus is at this celebration. He's at the temple. He's in Jerusalem looking to celebrate this Jewish festival. We read about him in what was Solomon's palace, walking through this portion of the palace that would have been known for hosting these parties, these celebrations. This would have been an 8-day festival, and he's here to celebrate. Verse 24, this is where the party takes a turn. It says, the people surrounded him and asked, how long are you going to keep us in suspense? If you are the Messiah, just tell us plainly. The people surround him. And who are the people in this moment? It would have been the religious people. Has anybody in this room ever been surrounded by the religious people? And it was the Jewish religious leaders that would have been surrounding Jesus, and they begin to raise their voice. They begin to talk to Jesus. As I read this text, I see a complaining and a blaming. They say, come on, Jesus. Are you serious? How long are you going to keep doing this to us? It couldn't be our problem. It couldn't be on us. It's on you. I have 4 points this morning, and the first one is to stop or don't blame Jesus for your doubt. These Jewish religious leaders surround Jesus, and they start to complain and blame. And get this, I find it interesting that it wasn't the people that had no faith that surround Jesus. It wasn't the non-religious people that had some questions. It was the religious leaders that approached Jesus, the people that were leading, the people that were supposed to be leading in this area, and they say, just tell us, Jesus, stop wasting our time. And in this moment, the Jews were confronting Jesus. Their expectation versus their reality was off. Anybody ever look at buying a home on whatever the device it may be? You're looking through the pictures and the place looks amazing. They hired a great photographer that somehow even the basement crevices are filled with light, natural light. There's absolutely not a window in the basement, but it is naturally lit so well. The yard is huge. The pictures look great. You go see this 4-bedroom, 4-bath house, and it's actually a studio apartment on the 8th floor with no elevator. And you're like, what in the world? I was expecting this, and then the reality was so far off. These people, these religious leaders, had questions, and they weren't getting their questions answered. And so the patience that they once had was lacking. The problems in their mind were once a negotiable, and now they're rising, and blame was being put on Jesus. Their doubt was being put on Jesus. Jesus wasn't what they expected. He wasn't operating in the way that they thought that he should operate. In church, even nowadays, is this often the case in your life, in my life? Where I expect one thing, or I expect an outcome, or a set of circumstances to follow, and then what I get is actually far from that reality. Because these people would have been expecting someone extremely political. These people would have been expecting somebody very dominant and demanding, someone incredibly powerful and heavily military focused, but this wasn't Jesus. They wanted this clear answer. They're questioning him, but that's not always how the Lord works. And so naturally we doubt. And we blame Jesus. Are you kidding, Jesus? This is your fault that I'm not getting what I deserve. But based on their doubt, based on the fact that Jesus wasn't the outcome that they had in their mind, it just led to more confusion, to more frustration, and to a lack of faith. And anybody that's experienced doubt in this room understands this. That doubt, for even the strongest of believers, for even the strongest of leaders, for even the strongest of religious leaders, can cripple us. No matter how many years you've been following Jesus, if doubt is left untreated, it can erode your faith. If we don't deal with the doubt, it leads us towards isolation and loneliness. If we don't deal with the doubt, it allows for this buildup of fear and anxiety. If we don't deal with the doubt, all the spiritual disciplines that we have allowed to become habit and routine begin to slowly fade away. And the list goes on. Doubt is the feeling of uncertainty. It's the lack of conviction. And so this morning, as you come to church, what's an area in your life that you can't seem to surrender to the Lord? How has doubt creeped in your faith? Is it based on past circumstances that you've walked through? Is fear one of the factors? Are you blaming Jesus? First point, don't blame Jesus for your doubt. And as we boil doubt down, I think it's clear that we have a part in the equation. Don't get me wrong. We have a part to play where we can step into those. There's things that we can do to combat the doubt. But we have to understand that there's an enemy at play who wants to steal, who wants to kill, who wants to destroy. So why not get in our head, get into the spaces of our life that make us doubt, that make us think, that make us feel and operate as if God is not in control. And then we think, really? The designer of the world, that one created me and you in his image, he doesn't have things under control. And maybe I should take over. Maybe I should step in. And he's the one to blame. But don't blame your doubt on Jesus. Let's read the response, starting at verse 25. Jesus says, I've already told you, and you don't believe me. The proof is the work that I do in my Father's name. But you don't believe me because you're not my sheep. My sheep listen to my voice. I know them, and they follow me. My second point is to don't let timing be a trap. Stop letting timing or time be a trap when it comes to your faith, when it comes to your relationship with Jesus. Earthly speaking, what's the most valuable resource that we have? I think many of us would insert money, but really it's time. You know what it's like when someone wastes your time. It frustrates you. It doesn't feel good. And one of the reasons that these people, these Jewish religious leaders, were surrounding Jesus in this moment, one of the reasons that they would have been frustrated right now was based on the timing. Is this ever you? Where you're praying for a miracle, you're praying for God to answer the prayers maybe that you've been praying for years, for your kids, for your family, for an illness. You're praying for God to provide. You're believing that God will do something in your life, and God chooses to answer those prayers differently, with different methods, with different directions, with different plans and different timing. How long are you going to keep us in suspense? That's what the people are saying. How long are you going to keep doing this? And they were trapped in the timing. This timing trap that they were involved in led them to this doubt. They said, stop wasting my time. Stop doing this to me. Stop leading me to a point. And I think, how often do we get in this attitude or this posture that's filled with all sorts of emotions that we feel like we have the right to feel. And I think if you're reading this maybe for the first time, you may be thinking, was there, these people that surrounded Jesus, maybe this wasn't the right setting, but it just seems like they were, the people surrounded him and asked, how long are you going to keep us in suspense? How do you know that there was so much emotion or so much hurt? Well, the reality is at this time, these people weren't asking Jesus these questions based on a genuine care. They weren't asking because they were actually curious. They were trying to trip him up. They were trying to trap him and use what he said against him. And Jesus responds, I've already told you and you didn't believe. The proof is in the work that I do in my Father's name. He says, I've clearly communicated the answer to you, even though you may not have thought about it this way, or you probably didn't like the timing of it. It's evident through what I've done, through my actions, and through my teaching. You see, it wasn't a lack of evidence for these people, but it was actually their unwillingness to believe. How many of us are in this point? It's not based on the teaching. It's not based on the actions. It's not based on what Jesus has done. It's just the doubt that we have. It's the timing that we've lived in where we're just unwilling to believe. These people had seen Jesus' miracles. They'd heard his teaching. They'd witnessed the character of Jesus, and yet still, they blamed Jesus for their doubt. They remained stuck in this trap of timing. And really, there were no questions that were needed for Jesus in this moment. There was no doubt that these people needed to have based on what they had heard. No selfish timing was worth being trapped in. But with this timing that we often get trapped in comes this way of thinking, this phrasing that comes into play, this if-then sort of way. Maybe you've been here at some point. Maybe you're in this point. If you do this, Lord, then I will. I've been praying for this. If you answer this prayer, then I will be obedient. If you heal this person I love, then I'll do what you ask. If you don't, then I won't. You guys understand what I'm saying? This happens, then I'll do this. We do this all the time in our relationship with Jesus. And he goes on to say in my paraphrased way, you aren't my sheep. You don't listen to me. You don't follow me. I don't know you. When it comes to doubt, where are you at in this moment, this morning? When it comes to this thought of timing, what does that look like when it comes to your faith? The third point that I have this morning is, do you know the shepherd's voice? Do you know the shepherd's voice? Part of the last few weeks of 2025, I've been given the opportunity to preach a few Bible classes or teach a few Bible classes. I end up preaching to some 7th and 8th and 9th and 10th graders at Hollandale Christian School. This is the school that I went kindergarten through 8th grade. And the other day, I'm in my classroom prepping to teach. I hear this woman's voice from not even in the room. I said, that's my kindergarten teacher. I know some of you guys, because I've already fielded these comments today, don't think it's that long since I graduated kindergarten. It's been a few years. But I knew so distinctly that this was this woman's voice. Soon enough, she comes walking in the classroom. This is a woman that I don't see. Every few years, I get to see her and give her a hug. But she played such a vital role in a huge moment in my life, pouring and investing so much into me. I knew this woman's voice. I think this point of, do you know the shepherd's voice? It's pretty clear. It's pretty easy to understand. Do I know? Yes or no? But I think if we actually do some thinking through that, if you, not just your pastor, not your ministry leader, not your small group leader, not only your spouse, but do you know the shepherd's voice? It seems pretty far-fetched. Can I hear from the shepherd? What does that look like? It seems like this person hears from the shepherd a lot more than I do. Can I even do that? But just like I knew my kindergarten teacher's voice, or I know my kid's voice, or I know my wife's voice, how do I do at knowing the shepherd's voice? How do I know their voice? By spending time with them. I spent every day for a year with my kindergarten teacher in a time where I was listening to all different voices, getting instructed by a few that were leading towards change, that were leading towards growth. I've known my wife for decades now, and I can spot her voice from 2 miles away because we've spent time together. We know each other. Same with my kids. A relationship with the shepherd is something that we have the opportunity to prioritize or not. We don't have to. We don't always choose to. But the more that we invest, the more we get to know